Okay, we're still in a wind tunnel and still in a cave. So bear with me as we, get the house back in order and soften some of this stuff. But I am super excited. This is the first time I have ever done anything like this on the podcast. Today, I'm going to tease and introduce a 4-part series that is coming in the whole month of June. We are talking marriage and entrepreneurship. And really, it's marriage and your husband, which seems obvious, right? But in my mind, I feel like, yeah, I get marriage, whatever. But then there's this person that makes up my marriage. It's my husband and I. And I feel like sometimes I can play married and not be so nice and understanding to my husband. So I don't know if that makes any sense to any of you, but that's what we're talking about. And today I just want to give you an idea of what is to come. So if you are married to a husband, then this is for you. So let's get started. Hey, Kingdom Builder. Welcome to the Growth Against the Grain podcast. Are you struggling to find balance between what Jesus wants for you and your big business goals? Do you find yourself up late at night, overwhelmed by the goals and growth you long for while also lacking the confidence to get there? Do you wake up with big, ambitious dreams only to feel frustrated that you're not promoting and afraid you'll fail when another team member quits and you miss that promotion again? Hey, I'm Michelle. I too was tired of being in the same place year after year. I too felt frustrated and wished to build the business of my dreams. I wanted to honor the Lord, level up, and see my team succeeding. But I kept telling myself the products are too expensive, or no one wants to join me, or maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Does that sound familiar? Until I realized that all the growth and success was nothing if God wasn't my first priority. In this podcast, you'll find network marketing business tips, biblical mindset encouragement, and a little mama motivation sprinkled in from time to time, all so that you'll see the growth and success through God's eyes first. Let's partner together, grow against the grain of this world, and find that balance you've been craving. Friend, go grab your Bible, notebook, and that coffee that's been beeping at you from the microwave. Let's get ready to grow against the grain. Okay, so if you have been listening for, the last 6 or 8 months or so, you've been part of this journey that I really didn't even fully understand myself. I knew that there were things that needed to change in my marriage, but truthfully, I don't know about you, I wanted to pick out the speck and point that out in my husband's eye and completely be blind to the log in my own eye. Anybody else guilty of that? And if you are saying no, I'm sorry, but you're a liar, because I know that you've done this at least once. Sorry, don't mean to call you out, but it is so easy to find the flaws in our spouse, like the way that they chew food. I don't know. That's obviously not a spiritual issue, but it's so easy to point the finger at somebody else and be like, oh yeah, no, the reason I'm like this is because you're like this and you're doing this and whatever. But I don't know about you. The Lord opened my eyes and guess what? I'm a sinner. Shocker. I know. I'm kidding. I've known that my whole life. But we are two sinners that are part of this union. And anytime you get a couple of sinners together, it's combustible, right? Well, I realized that, sure, there's things that my husband needs to work on, but guess what? There are things that I need to work on. And I say that tongue in cheek, but the reality is it was kind of like a lightning bolt where I was like, oh my goodness, wait a second. I'm saying he needs to do X, Y, and Z, and goodness, I'm kind of letting my pride rule here and there. And I'm noticing a couple of these relationships that seem to have some similarities. Maybe, Michelle, you are the common denominator. What in the world? So today's episode, like I said, is really just an intro of what's to come and what the Lord has been working on in my heart over these last, well, really, we've been married almost 27 years. So really over the last 27 years, but more specifically, I feel like a spotlight has been shown on that in the last 6 or 8 months. And really through the fire, it has been so much more obvious to me. So I figure that if I've struggled and am struggling and in the process of understanding something, that there is a better than good chance that at least one of you have struggled or are currently struggling with the same thing. Because what I know is you and I are very similar. We are Christians. We love our family. We love our husbands. We love being business owners. And yet we put all of this together, and sometimes we feel like we're supposed to know how to do it all. And the reality is we don't, but we are also too prideful to ask for help. One thing that I think about all the time is I wanted to start a business. I love being an entrepreneur. I love coming up with ideas and putting those things into play. I do not want to file my taxes. I don't want to do my taxes. I don't know how to do my taxes. It's not one of those things that comes naturally, like maybe when you give birth and you start nursing. To some of us, that came a little bit more naturally, right? You know, you get the idea, like you got the anatomy, you know how it all works. You've kind of heard about it. Like, okay, there are definitely some moms who it does not come easily to. Maybe this isn't a great illustration, but when I think of doing taxes, like there wasn't any like entrepreneurship onboarding where they're like, okay, now to set yourself up for success for your business, you need to do X, Y, and Z. I feel like there's a lot the same with your marriage and your husband. And you're like, well, you know, you guys got married. Great. You knew you wanted to have kids. Okay, great. You did those things. And, oh, okay, well, you're creative and you want to start a business. Okay, great. And we keep adding these things to our lives without realizing how much of a burden and just the ways that it's changing our relationships. But we just keep plugging along instead of asking for the help that we need. So when it comes to taxes, we know, oh gosh, there's all of these opportunities out there. There's CPAs that we can go talk to. There's bookkeepers, there's resources, and nobody would look down their nose at you for saying, oh gosh, I need to hire a bookkeeper or I need to hire an accountant. They'd be like, oh no, that's a really smart, wise thing to do for your business. But when it comes to our marriages and we're like, oh gosh, maybe we should talk to somebody, all of a sudden we feel like, oh no, that means my marriage is over and that there's a problem. No, not necessarily. Anyways, I'm getting a little off track. As a Christian, we throw words and phrases around like, you know, you got to put your husband first. And we're like, okay, no, that I feel like I should know what that means, but what does that actually mean? Do I let him walk through the door first? Like, do I actually put him first, let him walk through the door? Or am I to be waiting on him hand and foot? And you're like, somebody please explain all of this to me. Like, there's not a notebook. We do have God's word and it's all in there, but sometimes we need it, you know, explained. And so we're like, somebody please explain it to me. But then again, I know for myself, sometimes I feel like, well, gosh, I've been a Christian for a really long time. Like, I should just know these things. And the shoulds are kind of what get me in trouble. So anyone feel me on this? So it's easy to fall into that Christian trap where we keep going and never take a pause to address some of those quote unquote dust bunnies. That's what our marriage counselor told us 8-9 years ago when we sat in for counseling. Our marriage was at a triage moment. And we started meeting with a marriage counselor, and that is an episode for another time, which, Lord willing, I will get to that because that's kind of what I'm looking down the line here for to share with you. But those dust bunnies, they add up and they do become a big deal. And sometimes we don't know our way out of them. So like I said in the intro, I've never done a series like this before, and I'm really super excited. My fly by the seat of the pants nature is kind of digging on the fact that I've laid this series out ahead of time, and I want you to be aware of what's to come and hopefully get you excited for each episode. So starting next Thursday, which is June, I don't know, the first Thursday in June. Is it June 1st? I think it might be June 1st. Yes, it is June 1st. June 1st, we're going to kick off this series. And the great thing is I'm not doing this by myself. I've been talking to my husband, which is awesome because he's a man and he's a husband. And I'm guessing that he thinks similarly to a lot of your husbands. And I've been talking to some of my friends who are godly, wise believers and understand some of these things, have had some of these questions, and have also partnered with their husbands to talk through these things. And I want to be very, very clear. Okay, so I'm going to get serious here for just 1 second. I want to be really clear about the marriages I'm talking about. If you're in a marriage where there is any sort of abuse going on, and that can run the gamut. You know within your own heart what sort of marriage you're in. I'm talking about just things that are not right. Please, please seek out a godly, biblical counselor. Talk to your church. Ask them to send you in the direction or to point you in the direction of a biblical counselor. If your church is anything like mine, our church has started training certified biblical counselors, and they are available for free. It's amazing. I'm meeting with a woman right now. She's become a bit more of a mentor where I was like, okay, I just got to get some things straight here. There wasn't any major issue necessarily, but it's so nice to have those resources. So if that's where you find yourself, then this series may not necessarily be for you. This series is for those of you, most of you, who are in a healthy, not perfect, let's make sure that we understand that, a healthy, loving marriage. And I do believe that most husbands love their wives and desire for them to be happy and successful in what they're doing. If that describes your marriage, but there's a sense of frustration somewhere because, again, it's two sinners living under the same roof, and you probably created a bunch of other littler sinners that are much cuter at times, but all of a sudden we've got this house filled with sinners, and it can bring out the worst in us sometimes. So if that describes you and your marriage, where it is a quote unquote, I hate to say normal, but a quote unquote normal, healthy marriage, but you got problems from time to time because, again, as I keep saying, we're sinners, then this series is definitely for you. Maybe you don't feel like your husband supports your business as you'd like, or things aren't quite as smooth as you'd like to be. I fully and completely understand that. And in my experience, my frustrations have arisen not because my husband isn't supportive. And it's one of those things where like with half of your brain, like he's supportive. He wants me to do these things. Like he wants me to be successful. But maybe the frustration is arising because one or both of us hasn't properly communicated things. Maybe we've just assumed because you know what you're doing. Why doesn't he know what you're doing, right? Which is one of those things we're going to talk about. And maybe you just haven't been clear. And that's what I found for me is those areas of friction have arisen because we just haven't had a proper meeting of the minds, and we're just running and forgetting to stop and take time for our marriage and communicate. So if that is you, if you're like, yes, then this series definitely is for you. So here's what you can expect through the month of June. Okay. We've got 5 Thursdays in June, and I said it's a 4-part series. So what's going on here, Michelle? Okay, let me explain to you. So we're going to be talking about what does the Bible, not your mom, not your neighbor, not your best friend, and maybe they love the Lord, they're godly, but we want to know, what does the Bible say about marriage and your husband? Yes, please. We're going to talk about ways to cultivate a thriving marriage. We're going to talk about the fact that your husband can't read your mind. I know, it's shocking. I probably should have said it slower and warned you ahead of time. But as shocking as it is, I'm also very thankful because I don't know about you, sometimes my thoughts are not nice. So as much as I want him to know what I'm thinking on those times when I'm frustrated, it's probably equally good that he doesn't read my thoughts, and it's equally good that I can't read his, right? But we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about how to prioritize your husband. What does it mean to put your husband first? Like, what is that? What does that mean? So we're going to talk about those things. And then finally, the 5th week, my plan is to have a Q&A with my one and only, with my husband, with Mr. Growth Against the Grain himself, and answer some of your questions. So I would really like to answer your specific questions. Those are my favorite things. And in order to do that, you need to send me your questions. So I want to hear directly from you. There's 2 ways that you can send me your questions. Maybe 3. I will probably post this in the Facebook community as well, but definitely 2. One is you can answer the short Google form that I created. I will put a link in the show notes for you. Go click it and answer it. It's super short. Here's the questions that I ask you. What is and are your biggest struggles when it comes to balancing marriage, your husband, and your business or / work responsibilities? Because maybe you aren't an entrepreneur, but you work full time and you're finding some of these frustrations. So I want to know, are you struggling with creating boundaries? Are you struggling with communicating your needs and or expectations? Prioritizing your time with your husband, is that a struggle for you? Are you struggling to find balance between all the responsibilities? Share those things with me. And then I just ask that if you have something, what is your number one question about marriage and your business? Or what's a frustration, concern, or struggle you have when it comes to your marriage, your husband, and your business? And then what's something that you wish you could tell your husband, or you wish your husband knew about your business? Get honest, friend, raw, share those things, because we definitely want to answer as many as possible. And just put it out there. It is just so important. And I promise you, whatever your questions are, whatever your frustrations are, there are probably hundreds of other women listening who have the exact same question or frustration. So go to the Google form, fill it out. I'm not asking for your email address. You can be fairly anonymous. It's totally fine. You can give me your email address either way. Whatever works best for you, I'm totally cool with it. Or if you'd rather, shoot me an email at hello@growthagainstthegrain.com. I want to hear from you. It would be awesome. Either one of those ways. I would prefer the Google form because it's just guiding you along. But if you want to send me an email, send it. And I want to be very clear. My marriage is not perfect. I am not perfect. I am flawed. I'm a sinner. I mess up all the time. And we have been married almost 27 years, and literally light bulbs have just gone on, opened or turned on recently to some things. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, how have I been married this long and just realizing some of these things? So friend, I don't know if this strikes a chord with any of you, but this is what we've got coming up over the next 4 weeks. And I am super excited because I know that God created that man that you are married to for you. And I want to be very clear. I keep saying marriage because there is a unique relationship. It is a covenant between you and the Lord and your husband. This is not a dating thing. Now, there are certain things that would certainly apply to dating and whatnot, but I am talking specifically about a marriage relationship. If you are getting ready to get married, oh my goodness, these are things that I wish I knew before I got married, right? But I am talking specifically about your husband and your marriage and your business. So if you are here for it, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and pray because I want to pray over your marriage. Dear gracious Father, I just pray that you would make our love increase and overflow for our spouses and for each other and for everyone else, because I know that you have designed marriage to be good. Oh, so good. I am so thankful for our marriages. May they be rooted and built up in your Son, Jesus. Strengthen our faith and cause us to overflow with thankfulness, Father. thank you so much. I pray that you would go before each woman as we start this journey of talking about marriage and our businesses and our husbands. And Lord, I know that we want to honor you in each of those relationships. Lord, thank you so much. Just bless what is to come, Lord, in ways that we couldn't even imagine. And in your son's name, amen. Okay, I'll see you next Thursday for part 1. Hey, before you go, if you learned something new or found value in today's episode, would you pop over to iTunes to Growth Against the Grain and leave a review and subscribe to the show? That would be awesome. And if you'd like to connect with my community of other mamas just like you, learning to align their audacious goals with what God has for them, then join us at bit.ly/Christian Mindset Support or click on the link below. There's always room for one more. Can't wait to see you over there.